Welcome to Digital Toolbox. I'm Scott, and today I'll walk you through plotting points using a range and a custom function in Grasshopper. With this, we'll start to be able to drive our own function. Here I'm toggling the amplitude of a sine curve, and also the domain through which we run our function. So to start off, I'll go ahead and open up a new definition and find the range button. It's under logic sets range. To give us our range, it'll ask for a domain D. It starts at 0, and then we'll go ahead and grab a slider, double click to search, grab a slider, and I'll edit the points to be integers from 0 to we'll call it 40. And this is going to say that the domain is going to be from 0 to 40. Now it also asks us for the number of steps we want to take from 0 to 40, which can be just 40 as well, and that'll give us 1 for every unit on our graph or on the grid. But it could also be 20, and that'll give us 1 every 2 units, or anything in between. So we'll go ahead and just leave it at 30 right there. This doesn't mean anything until we plot the points. So to get the points, we'll have to go under vector, point, XYZ will be the best for this exercise, and then we'll just go take the X straight to the range. So we can see that the domain 0 to 40 takes however many units we want it to go to, from 0 to, we'll max it out at 40, and then the steps in is the number of points we want there. So it can be as low as 1, here's 6, or we'll go ahead and say 30. We can also specify a specific interval as opposed to just 0 to any number. We can go under scalar, interval, and just grab a basic interval. And as opposed to saying 0 to 40, we can specify something else. So I'll copy this, and we can start it at start A will be the first number. We'll start it at 12, and then the next number we'll say is 40, and then that interval we can run into the domain. So you can see it pops up to starting at 12, or I can send it back down. Here's at 7, going from 7 to 33. So that's using an interval. Now that we've defined our domain using an interval and have the number of steps in our range, we can go ahead and run that through a function in a different axis. So here's a sine function that we can put into the y axis using the same numbers, and it'll pop out a sine function using that domain and range with a sine curve. We can also do this with the cosine. Grasshopper gives us a cosine as well as many other things. And we'll put that into the y, just like our sine one, and it just flips it to the cosine. Now what we can also do, now that we have the range set up, is put in any function we like. So I'll delete the sine, and if we want to have we can put in 2x plus 3, or a logarithmic one that have polynomials here. We can put in anything we want. But the expression editor lets us put in a function up to 8 variables. So I'll go ahead and select a 3-variable function. This is a function with x, y, and z variables. So even if we wanted a sine, we could use some math to have even a more editable sine. So I'll double click on here, and this pops up the expression editor. I'll go ahead and say sine with parentheses, and then in the parentheses I'll put y times x. where x is our straight variable and then y is the period. We'll edit that, toggle that with a slider. Now we have a z variable we can also use, so I'll go ahead and do the amplitude as well. That'll be z times sine times the sine function. So now that I've edited that, I can take the range, send it through the x variable, which is the variable that we want to see on the graph, and plug that back into y. So I'll delete the cosine. And now we need to specify those variables. We haven't specified them. So I'll grab a slider, and I'll go ahead and say integers from 1 to 4. And this is just for the period and amplitude. So I'll go say that they're both 1 and 1. And there you have it. We have our sine that we put into the expression editor in our function with 3 variables. The slider and the y was the period, so you can see that the period ramps up from 1 to 2, and if it's not clear enough, if there's not enough points, we can just go ahead and add more points or make the domain larger as well. So here you can see that it also goes, we might need more points to make it a smoother graph. So I'll go ahead back to the number of steps and edit that and go up to, we'll double it and go 80. So that makes the number of steps, the dy if you will, a little bit smoother. And then we can see that this goes up to, the period is 2. Go back down to 1, the period is 1, just like the normal sine button, except now we have full control over it. So I also put in the z for amplitude, and you can see pretty easily that that goes up from the 1 to 2 amplitude, or 3 or 4. And if we just want to make that smoother, then we just crank up the number of steps and it'll get a little bit smoother. So there you have it. We have our function, our sine function that we've edited with our own sliders to create a different, to create a fully editable function, which this function could be anything we want it to. We learned about the range button and what the domain is and the number of steps and how we define those, and used an interval to define a domain different from starting at 0 to a number using a different interval. And then we see those through the point button. So there you have it. We learned about the range, interval, and functions today, and hope you got something out of this tutorial. See you next time.